Here we go. We're live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the weekly iTOVi Live. If you can hear me, tell me where you're watching this from, because today we have a special guest who is currently living across the pond over in England. So drop into the comments where you're at, and we want to find out a little bit more about that. We're excited today to have Amanda Porter on our iTOVi Live with us. She's an essential oil emotions expert and the primary contributor to the Emotions and Essential Oils book, which you may or may not be familiar with, but most of you probably are. It's also the reference book that is driving our emotions report analysis. Words today are tricky. So we're excited to bring her to you, and we'll mostly be talking about the properties of oils and answering your questions at the end. So as we're going along, as we're talking about categories and emotions and essential oils, throw your comments into the comment section, and we'll get to those towards the end.
Thank you for having me, you guys. Yeah. I'm so grateful to be here. So thank you for inviting me. It is dark. I am across the world, but I'm so grateful to be here.
It's nighttime.
Yes.
We got one person from Scotland.
Nice. It's not too far. Couple of announcements real quick before we dive in. We've got our big giveaway for the most unique scans. First place winner gets the option of an iPad or a scanner, which we rarely give away. So the second and third place winners also get iPads. So for more details, go to our post on Tuesday to see how to win. Basically, scan as many people as you can. Unique individuals. So with that, we'll be using a lot of examples today. So comment in the comments your favorite oil, and we might use that oil as one of the examples as we're talking about emotions. So Amanda, just to kind of get us kicked off, for those of our viewers that aren't familiar with you and your work, tell us a little bit about your background.
So it's interesting, actually, because my background has been largely in emotional healing, and the original author on this book, Emotions and Essential Oils, way back then, his name is Daniel McDonald, and he came to me in this emotional healing realm, and he asked for my help, and he wanted to bring the message forward that essential oils are emotional healers, and they're not just physical healers. And I had only used the essential oils for physical healing up to that point, all those years ago. And he said, as a healer, I need your help to bring this message to a wider population. And so it was really this shift over in me for the essential oils, knowing that people need healing, and that emotional healing is so important for people in our world right now. Everyone's usually has something that they're struggling with or have been struggling with. And it was this journey of learning about the essential oils and how they can partner with people for their emotional health and well-being. And then, of course, I was hooked. We wrote the book eventually and published it. And kind of the rest is history. I've been doing this now, writing the book, teaching about this for 8 years. So that's the short version of how I got to where we are today.
That's awesome. And you've been a friend of iTOVi for a really long time. And my first introduction to you was when we were actually going around Europe and doing that tour. And I sat in on a couple of your sessions, and it was awesome. It was very eye-opening. So again, super excited to have you here and be able to talk with you a little bit. As you talk about that journey, tell us a little bit more in the weeds of how did you come up with these emotional descriptions of the oils and the categorization of those products?
That's a good question. So originally in the book, we were looking at, it's a brand new process. And basically there was not very much information out in the public about the actual emotional properties of the oils. There was some really scant information back when we were starting about some of the aromatherapy benefits, chemical benefits, some of the studies that were being done, they were very few and far between. And so looking at how every plant has a certain medicine, both a physical medicine and an emotional sort of medicine. We knew that there was a big missing area about what is this emotional story? What is the emotional message of the plants? And so to find out what that is a really interesting process because it requires sort of both the brains and both sides of ourselves and different aspects of our being. Because you have to look at the actual medicinal properties of a plant. You have to look at where it's grown. You have to look at where it's harvested, and so many things about its sort of sciencey medicinal sort of background to get an understanding of what does this plant offer. And then when you kind of go through all of this research about the plant, there is a process that then sort of leaves the page and leaves the hard science of then using a lot of intuition and guidance to understand what is the emotional purpose of this? How is this helping people in a modern world? And that story comes individually for each plant. And I would say it's mostly intuitive learning at that point, how you transition from strictly scientific medicinal information to emotional information. And the thing that's been fascinating to watch, because back in the beginning when we were working on this, as I mentioned, there wasn't a lot of scientific information. And it's been really fascinating to watch over time how we had some anecdotal information before the book was published through scanning technology and other things that were validating our theories at the time and the findings, which kind of prompted us to actually publish the book with the information we felt like was valid and helpful to people. But since then, it's been really fascinating to also have science and case studies and those kinds of things also supporting some of the purposes behind what we say these oils are helpful for. And so it's just an interesting marriage, I would say, of a lot of different science meets energy, meets intuition, and it's been a spiritual process and a very academic process, and they all sort of weave into one. And that's what delivers the end emotional description that you find in this information.
I love that. That's awesome. And then those descriptions, that's where we really derive the categorization from as well,
Yeah.
right?
So here's the thing about the descriptions and the reason that the wheel was created. Oh, hey, right on cue,
I just
Matt.
knew that's where you were going.
Great. The reason that this was created is that we realized that without categories, it's hard for people as the end user and people who want to help other end users know how to even begin or how to interact with the descriptions. There are a lot of emotional information. There are a lot of great content, but people usually come at emotions from a category perspective. They know they're feeling, say, sad or fear or anger, or they want more joy, more peace, more calm. And so having a category actually helps people know how to interact with this and what to do with it. And also, you don't have to become an expert in every single oil that way, because you can go to your categories and drill down. And so the information is just right there for you when you're trying to find solutions for yourself or for other people. If you can get to the emotional category and then have the information there to support that. Does that make sense?
Totally.
Right.
That's perfect. And you touched on a couple of things in here that weave into the next question of what's the importance of using like a reference guide, specifically in this scenario where we have our essential oil distributors and members trying to navigate this conversation. How would they use the reference book and kind of in turn they would use those same principles in navigating the report analysis?
So the really great thing about approaching essential oil usage from an emotional perspective is that the oils sort of sell themselves. When you have someone who there's no convincing that needs to be done. If someone resonates with an emotional story with each oil, the work is done. They know they need it. They know it's part of their story. It resonates with them in a way that is deeper than anyone could convey to them. And so approaching the oils from an emotional perspective is reaching a very deep part of a person, because people ignore their physical health all the time. Do they not? Like they have this ache or they should check on this and they can put it off and I don't really, but when you speak to someone on an emotional level, they know immediately whether they need it or not. And so when there's an emotional resonance with a reference guide, with the information, all you have to do is present that to people and they will resonate and respond with that information. And so you don't have to worry about diagnosing people or recommending people. For example, in a scan, the information will present itself when they are able to read the reference information that goes along with it. Job done. They'll know what they need. They'll know if it fits. They'll know how it fits. And it's just a much smoother process for helping people heal, but also helping them to feel like they're the ones driving that healing. They're the ones choosing into that. And that's the beauty of using this sort of reference information in your scans with people.
Yes, I resonate very much with what you just said. In the dozens or hundreds of interviews that we've done over time, I've been in the setting of the receiving side of a scan and sitting with somebody that is talking me through kind of the emotional properties of these oils, and I personally have witnessed the resonance of a category and also the flip side of that. And we've been able to have a dialogue around the category. And I have experienced that myself. So that totally hits home with what you just talked about.
You made an interesting point there, Matt, because when you said the resonance or the flip side, one of the things I talk about at one of the workshops that I do is if people have an actual aversion, a very strong aversion to an oil or a category, that is just as much information, if not more, than their attraction to that category. And so sometimes I have them ask the question, is there anything in this, because you need the reference guide, you need the information, you need a category for them to sort of mentally wrap their head around it. So is there anything in this information that you might be resisting, and why? And that question in and of itself often opens up new doors in people. And again, they're self-directing. They're taking themselves on their own journey. But sometimes you'll see the light bulb go off, not just in the attraction, but in the aversion to certain information. And they'll realize, right, yeah, there might be maybe I should take a second look at that, because there might be a reason that I don't even want to connect with that right now. So either way, the reference information gives you all the tools coming or going, basically, to help people self-identify, self-direct, and then choose in where they are with their healing and where they need to go next.
Yes, that 100% resonates with me. We are at these conventions and go on the book tour with you, and we scan hundreds of people. And I love, as they initially look at that report, I have that one. I use that every day. I have, black pepper. I hate that one. Like I would never use that. And I love being able to put that question to somebody and say, well, and with the old report, it was kind of a little bit harder because I didn't have that information right in front of me of well, here's the emotional properties or the emotional benefits or some of the physical properties of black pepper. Is there anything in this information that is causing that dissonance or that resonates with you? Now with the new report and all of that information right inside the app, that conversation is so powerful. And that question just puts it right to the heart of the reaction. So
Absolutely.
It's super
Like I said, people will naturally, when they have the information, they have the material, they're able to assess it right there in the moment, they'll know for themselves what the story is about. And then there's not the same resistance because they're not being convinced by someone else. They're able to self-identify, and that changes the dynamic for people when they're choosing in.
That's awesome. Okay, last question, and then we'll jump into a few of the comments. What is your current favorite oil I think this is funny that I'm throwing this at you right after our conversation about the dissonance one. What's your favorite oil, and how are you using it or experiencing it?
That's such good, and I get that all the time, and it changes all the time. I'm glad you didn't ask me what my current resistance is, because that's a whole other live. But the one that's my favorite right now, I would say, I've really, bergamot is definitely coming up for me a lot. I have just moved abroad. There's a lot to that. There's, stuff with my kids, and there's stuff with all kinds of stress and anxiety inducing experiences. And so when I'm feeling like these anxious sort of states of being, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's bureaucracy in a different country that I didn't even know. And all of that. How do I drive on the wrong side of the road? And, things like that. I've been feeling so much of a need to partner with bergamot, because it not only helps me to say emotionally that I'm okay how I am, and that my experience of this is all right, and I can allow myself to have a journey and have struggles. Very supportive, very uplifting, but chemically, we're going into the science of it. It has been proven to alter your brain chemistry, and it helps to increase really helpful neurotransmitters that calm and soothe and rebalance your mental state of mind. So I have used that in partnership with some tools and different things that I have developed to help people address some of their anxious feelings. And so I've been using that a lot. I just literally, I feel like I'm getting a hit off the bottle. Things start to get a little crazy, and I'm like, okay, I can drive again on the wrong side of the road. Let's go. So that's definitely been my partner lately, because there's been a lot of stress and anxiousness involved in all of these sort of details. Everything's still pretty fresh.
Well, Amanda, thank you for sharing that with us and kind of opening up a little bit. I appreciate you sharing that with us. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Casey, do we have any questions coming in?
So someone says it's the right side for me. Oh, okay, sorry. Just going back to the very beginning, we had a couple of questions come in before the live. And maybe we can just touch on, we've had lots of questions around the app analysis. So we'll just do one question, one quick kind of explanation on how to read the report really quick, and then we'll go into the rest of the questions for Amanda.
Awesome. So hopefully this whole dialogue that we've been having with Amanda has opened your eyes a little bit and been insightful around the power of the emotion report and the content therein, and how you might be able to apply some of that content. There's two things that I specifically wanted to mention in regards to a lot of the how do I read this report question. The first one is that you scan for products, not for categories. We don't have a way of measuring the frequency of peace, but we do have a way of measuring the frequency of the specific essential oils, blends, and supplements that fall inside of that category. So again, you scan for products, not for categories. And the second part, which we've touched on a little bit here, is that products will always return the same emotional category. Ylang ylang will always return the emotional category of joy. Lime will always return the emotional category of energy. So there's no scanning for emotions per se. It's scanning for products, and then getting to, that's what the beauty of that report is that we're drawing those correlations and doing all of the referencing for you in the a quick snapshot to be able to say, this is where there are some consistencies in what you're scanning for. So hopefully that provides a little bit of context to the report, period. Okay, great. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for your time. We're going to call it. And
no, thank you so much for having me here. It's always a pleasure.
Watching this later, and we'll do our best to get back to it and again, let Amanda kind of get to bed, or I don't even know what time it is there, just night, right?
It's late.
Probably have a lot of work.
It's late, but it's fine. Right.
You're great. And thank you so much to everybody that's watched, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.